Roman Reigns is not planned for a major WWE event. We've got an update on WWE's plans for international premium live events, and we've got scrapped plans for a big AEW title match. Stay tuned for all the deets. So kicking things straight off with the news coming fresh out of The Observer from Dave Meltzer himself. Roman Reigns is apparently not planned to appear at Survivor Series this year, with the report stating Reigns is not scheduled for Survivor Series, which is notable because it's considered a Big Four event. The report concludes by saying that following his title defense against LA Knight at Crown Jewel on November 4th, his next scheduled defense won't be until the Royal Rumble in January.
Wow.
And me and Fraser have sat here and we've talked a couple of weekends now. It's come up in the news, the fact that Roman, he has this meteorically long reign, but the number of defenses is quite low overall for the total amount of dates, and it does feed well into his character and it does feed well into the storyline. But for a Big Four event, I know Survivor Series is something that Vince once looked at as just get rid of it potentially, but it feels odd not to have Roman there.
It is quite surprising for a Big Four event not to have him there. Now I'm wondering whether this is because they want to maybe focus on Jimmy and Jay sort of going forward towards WrestleMania, because I do feel like we are sort of heading towards Jimmy and Jay having a singles match at WrestleMania and then potentially, them finally coming back together. But if we're heading towards WrestleMania and perhaps we are getting maybe Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, maybe we do start to focus more on Jimmy, Jay and Solo and how perhaps they break away from the bloodline and everything finally does. We've said this for years now, how things finally do
Cody
start to crumble.
Finish the story.
Yeah, but maybe that's the plan or the thinking is that maybe we focus on Jimmy, Jay and Solo and Heyman sort of going forward towards Royal Rumble and then past that to WrestleMania, but we focus mainly on this now, which is a weird thing to say because like the title that Roman holds is probably the most prestigious one.
It's the most important, right? It's the most important to the whole company, not just to the storyline. But I think the thing I'm sort of forgetting there is that, we've got not just Roman, there's multiple main storylines running through the bloodline. So you can't really have Roman there all the time. I guess you do need to dedicate some set time for all these other sort of, I don't want to call them ancillary stories, but you know what I mean? Like the stories in and around it. So it still feels odd that Roman isn't set to be there, but it's, what do you think about the potential for Punk being there?
Well, I mean, again, I don't want to, speculation station too much, but I mean, if Roman's not there, maybe it is because there's another big surprise potentially. I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but it is a weird one. But I do think they are mainly focusing on storylines that are happening within the bloodline for that then to finally sort of like start to spread out and maybe conclude by the time we get to WrestleMania.
Well, on the point of main storylines and sort of main reasons to watch and main draws of the product, the report in the Wrestling Observer does also touch on the top draws for the WWE in recent months, and they've been revealed as Roman Reigns, John Cena and Cody Rhodes. Now, alongside this, Paul Heyman also does well in the ratings with Reigns and without him. By virtue of this, Solo Sikoa would, of course, be involved, included in this kind of, he is a draw because he's featured alongside Heyman and the wider bloodline. I don't think it's very surprising that we're seeing Reigns, Cena, and Rhodes there. No. I think that it's weird because wrestling fans, I feel, fall into two camps. There are people that just watch every week because they've always watched, right? And there are those people that vote with their feet, right? They're going to watch the show they want to watch more. And they're a smaller percentage of the audience, but it's sort of, these are the shows they're coming back to. These are the talents they're coming in to watch, to catch up on and to, sort of see these big featured moments. So it sort of shows that, Cody, in spite of everything he's sort of gone through story-wise, I think that, it makes sense he's up there listed alongside that. Cena, of course. I mean, Cena's just, anytime there's a new Cena shirt,
it's gone.
Get out there. I was quite surprised that LA Knight wasn't mentioned there.
Yeah, me too, actually, thinking about it, with everything that's been sort of going on and the groundswell that he's had recently. But, I mean, it's John Cena, isn't it? It's Roman Reigns and it's Cody Rhodes at the end of the day. Like, those are Roman is the most dominant champion in WWE right now. John Cena is a legend that everybody's known for the longest time, and Cody is just also like the biggest babyface, I feel like, within the company. Also, you know, obviously LA Knight is in that running and in that question as well, but maybe, I don't want to say not quite on the level as Cody, because I feel like he kind of is at the same time.
It's just that Cena's just quickly gone, can I just nick your step there for a second? I'm back for a little bit. Right, I'm going to nip out now, do a film. There you go. But I think, you know, it's always interesting to look at names that maybe, you know, I expected to see in and around that. But no surprise there really with Roman, Cena and Cody being at the top, especially with Cody getting all of his fancy merch ready for Bash at Berlin. Bash in Berlin, sorry.
I haven't seen his fancy merch.
It's the, I think it says Claim Your Kingdom. And it's got the German flag running through the Cody logo. The Nightmare Family skull. Can we call it that anymore?
I guess. Maybe, I don't know actually. I like the fact that they've probably just got like a default Photoshop file that they can just open and put different flags over the top of it.
The magic selector, just take them all that, delete, just quickly stick another flag in there. But on the point of that German t-shirt there from Cody Rhodes, following on from Sean Ross Sapp's report on Fightful Select that SummerSlam would be set to visit Cleveland next year and that Paris is planned to host Backlash, the Wrestling Observer newsletter has revealed that WWE is apparently currently in negotiations with a lot of different city governments around the world. WWE is hoping to get significant money for pay-per-view events going forward, with Paris being one of those cities. And Paris, the rumored venue for that in Paris currently is Stade France, which holds 81,000 that's for rugby. So when you factor in the pitch, you're gonna maybe be able to get 90,000 in there for that if they do sell that out. I think that's mad. I'm very excited about the fact we're finally getting the world in World Wrestling Entertainment getting some love.
That's a great point.
You know, it's something where I'm not surprised to see it now that TKO's taken over. Right, UFC is in every city in the world at different points. It's just constantly globetrotting. So I think, you know, why not? Why not do these bigger shows? We saw the monstrous response for Backlash.
Yeah.
We've seen, you know, AEW at Wembley. There are massive markets out there who are starved of wrestling on that scale and haven't maybe ever seen a premium live event or pay-per-view, however you want to call it. And you know, I think that you're going to get numbers, especially, you know, Western Europe, because I mean, it was the same for Wembley with AEW. It's very easy for people to get to London from France, from Germany, from like, you know, the Scandinavian countries, from Spain, from everywhere, sort of along that run. So I think that you know, it's I'd like to go to see Stade France. Ideally to see rugby, but you know, I'm there for the wrestling.
I'd love to go there for the wrestling. Again, like we've said it multiple times as well on the news and in other videos as well. Like it just makes so much sense for WWE to continue sort of pursuing premium live events in international cities and everything, because I mean, the excitement is there. We see the crowds, and the crowds are more often than not when we watch the pay-per-views. The crowds are the things that make these pay-per-views so special. Yeah, because they're so excited. They finally get to, you know, see the wrestling in their city.
They're part of that universe. Finally,
and like you say as well, you know, especially sort of for where we are, it's not necessarily too hard to get to like a Paris, or a Berlin or anything like that. So like the excitement is there, and I feel like at this point, you just know people will flock to it anyway, no matter what.
And WWE are being quite smart with it. We heard this in and around Clash at the Castle. Yeah. You know, it was the Welsh Tourism Board was very heavily involved with bringing WWE to Cardiff in terms of making the deal that was most suitable for WWE in and around that event. And I think that that's sort of what you're looking at. You've got all sorts of different things you can do when it comes to live production, when it comes to film production, especially. Like you can go into a different city and say, hey, I want to shoot here. It's going to cost you this much money. Oh, I'll just go shoot it in Vancouver. And Vancouver will give them a tax break. They'll do this, they'll do that. They'll make it all kind of work for them and their schedule. And I think if WWE is able to start having these relationships with cities that it can sort of visit on the regular, maybe once a year, and we can start seeing pay-per-views PLEs in just a different country every month. I think I'd be fascinated by that.
It'd be really cool. It'd be really cool. I wonder if then though, maybe it depends actually. If you see them once a month, would people get burnt out on it?
I think it'll get burnt out. Maybe. I think you're maybe going to see the big four and plus other events, and then eventually we might get to a point where we start seeing it just being a globe-trotting thing.
I like it.
Not that we're going to have Raw and SmackDown in different countries every month. That would be exhausting. But I think that if you had maybe every couple of months, every few months, there was a big event or one of the mainline events just sort of running in a different city, I think that would be awesome.
I like it.
And it
sounds
sort of
good.
ties into what you were saying about everybody just being so excited to see
of course.
But moving over to AEW now, there's some scrap plans here. So this one, again, from The Observer. The plan was apparently definitely FTR versus Young Bucks 4, but it doesn't appear that that's going to happen. FTR suggested that the loss to Big Bill and Ricky Starks, and the idea at the time was that it would lead to a rematch and the winners would defend against the Young Bucks. The report then goes on to say that the belief is that everything has now changed. Dum, dum, dum.
Dum, dum, dum.
The Young Bucks earned a title match at Wrestle Dream, but following their return to TV this past week, it's not been mentioned at all by any of the announcers. And the report continues by saying, in fact, as best as I can tell, the four-way win hasn't been talked about in weeks. It also could be Big Bill and Ricky Starks in a rematch with FTR on the pay-per-view rather than television. That match was originally set for the 28th of October TV tapings, but there was nothing this week indicating it would be happening that soon, although they've been teasing the rematch for weeks. So bit up in the air. Plans are always subject to change in and around wrestling. One little thing sort of changing backstage, one little thing changing in storyline, one massive crowd response here or there can really sort of sway. Just plans, they're not ever going to be that quite nailed in. And it's not like you can't just run this match again later or have it kind of get brought up of, hey, we earned that. Hold on, like nothing's been done with this, and it can be then relayed into storyline, which I could find quite interesting if they do it like well with it.
Me too. I think it was sort of like, it did feel like a given that we were going to get FTR versus the Young Bucks 4 at Full Gear. That kind of just felt like where everything was going, especially after like the match we saw it All In and everything. Obviously, these two teams know each other so well, and the door's always open for them to continue like their storied history together. But at the same time, like the curveball they threw in there with Big Bill and Ricky Starks winning the tag team titles, I was like, ooh, I wasn't expecting that.
But I'm happy, man.
I'm happy for that. I think Big Bill is one of the best comeback stories in wrestling, like of all time.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of like all down for either them versus the Young Bucks down the line, because obviously Young Bucks have won this opportunity to face the tag team champions at some point. And even if they don't do that, I'm happy to see the rematch with FTR as well down the line.
Two Davids versus one Goliath tagging with another David. Yes, please. Right, well that's it for your third dose of lovely wrestling. I know you said lovely bumper weekend wrestling news. I usually don't do the weekday news, but thank you for watching. Make sure you stick around. We've got the Cultaholic podcast hitting the channel and all of your standard podcast listening places at 8 p.m. So check that out when it drops. We'll be back tomorrow with some weekend wrestling news. I can say it there.
You can say it.
But in the meantime, stay safe. We'll catch you in a bit.